Welcome, everyone, to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we are about to unpack something truly fascinating. We're exploring the biological mechanisms that drive our everyday performance. And today, we're zeroing in on the deeply surprising, frankly mind-blowing link between sodium and your mental stability. If you've ever felt this inexplicable low-level stress, or maybe just a sudden lack of focus out of nowhere, well, the culprit might literally be sitting in your kitchen pantry right now. So I have to ask, is salt actually the hidden driver of your daily anxiety? I know, it sounds completely counterintuitive, right? We usually blame our stress on our jobs, our relationships, or, just getting a terrible night of sleep. But modern neurobiology is showing us that having sodium levels that are too low can actually impair your nervous system's ability to handle just regular, everyday challenges. Okay, let's dive into this and start dismantling some of that rigid dogma we've all grown up with. I mean, think about it. For decades, we've been told that salt is the absolute primary villain of our diet. It's this thing to be avoided at all costs if you want a healthy heart. That's a preconceived notion pretty much all of us share. But we really need to flip the script here. It turns out if your sodium levels drop too low, it actually leaves your nervous system on this biological hair trigger for stress. You aren't just hungry and you aren't just thirsty. Your body literally thinks it is in a life or death state of emergency. And to understand exactly why that happens, we need to look at how your brain is actually built. Section 1. Your brain's weak fence. Let's take a look at blood-brain barrier gaps. So generally speaking, your brain operates behind this highly secure biological wall known as the blood-brain barrier. It's like a VIP bouncer that keeps toxins and wild fluctuations in your blood from disrupting your super delicate neural circuitry. But there are a couple of special, highly specific regions where that protective barrier is intentionally left weak, and the most famous of these is called the OVLT. Because the barrier is incredibly thin right there, these specific neurons get to sit right in your bloodstream. Their entire job, literally their only purpose, is to constantly monitor the concentration of salt, or blood osmolarity in your body. When they sense a change, boom, they instantly fire off behavioral signals to other areas of your brain. Think of the blood-brain barrier as a massive, fortified biological fence, and the OLDT as a strategic weak fence, essentially acting as your body's internal salt sensor. Honestly, this brilliantly illustrates how the brain intentionally leaves a gap in its own heavy defenses, risking exposure, just so it can keep a close, uninterrupted eye on your sodium levels. That is just how critical salt is to your basic survival. So why is the brain so obsessively checking your salt? Well, it all comes down to the action potential. This is the actual electrical signal that your neurons use to communicate with one another. And at a fundamental biological level, this process absolutely requires sodium to fire. If your sodium levels dip too low, your neurons literally cannot communicate efficiently. The signal drops, your brain function can actually suffer. You don't just need sodium for flavor, you need it simply to allow your nervous system to operate at a normal baseline level. Section 2. The stress hormone domino. Let's map out this biological cascade. What exactly happens when that weak fence in the OVLT senses that your sodium is low? It triggers a very fast, very specific domino effect. Step 1, the OVLT detects that low sodium. Step 2, your adrenal glands, which are sitting right on top of your kidneys, immediately spring into action and release a hormone called aldosterone. Step 3, this hormone release triggers a massive salt craving, while simultaneously throwing your entire body into a generic stress state. The release of aldosterone effectively mimics a famine or drought alarm. As a direct result, your blood pressure spikes, and you feel this sudden, very real biological wave of anxiety. Your body is panicking, plain and simple, because it thinks it's running out of the exact fuel its neurons need to talk to each other. But here is the truly amazing part about all of this. Simply increasing your salt intake can actually stabilize your autonomic nervous system, pulling your body right out of that chaotic emergency hormone response. If you're someone who gets that super familiar, annoying, dizzy head rush when you stand up a little too quickly, or if you just have naturally low blood pressure, consuming a bit more salt can lead to a much calmer, far more alert state. It literally just reaches up and shuts off the aldosterone alarm. Section 3. Hydration mass and you. Let's talk about how to apply this science. Now, before you start dumping the salt shaker into everything you own, a quick but absolutely critical warning. You have to be a scientist of one. If you already have high blood pressure, you must be extremely cautious with salt. Always check that first. But if your blood pressure is normal or running on the low side, optimizing your hydration is an absolute game changer. And that brings us to the magic number 30. This is the foundation of the Galpin equation for hydration. Here's how you use it. You take your body weight in pounds, divide it by 30, and that result gives you the exact number of ounces of fluid you should be drinking every 15 minutes during intense exercise, or honestly, even during heavy mental work. It takes all the completely random guesswork out of figuring out what your specific body actually requires. But hold on, we definitely can't stop at just water. You also need the essential electrolytes, sodium, potassium, and magnesium, because the crucial point is that you cannot just drink plain water all day long and expect to be properly hydrated. It just doesn't work that way. If you want to optimize your nervous system and keep that underlying anxiety completely at bay, you have to pair your water intake with these specific electrolytes so your brain actually has the physical tools it needs to fire those action potentials. In fact, if you just ignore those electrolytes, you can trigger something called hyponatremia. That's a really dangerous condition caused by flushing way too much sodium out of your system by overhydrating with just plain water. If you're walking around chugging from a massive jug of plain water all day, you are literally draining your body's vital sodium reserves. And the results? Well, you'll end up feeling disoriented, physically weak, and incredibly stressed out, all because your body is frantically pumping out aldosterone to try and save whatever tiny bit of sodium it has left. Section 4. Beating diabolical food traps. Let's make sure we are choosing the right salt. Okay, so we know without a doubt that we need salt, but where exactly should we be getting it? It's incredibly important that we safely source it. When we compare eating whole foods to eating highly processed foods, there is a massive, stark difference in how our body reacts. Eating unprocessed, whole foods allows your brain to accurately register your natural salt appetite. You naturally just eat what you need to fulfill what your body requires to stay totally tranquil. On the other hand, food manufacturers intentionally hack our biology. They engineer these utterly diabolical salty-sweet combinations in processed foods. These combos are literally designed in a lab to bypass your brain's natural satiety signals. They trick you into overeating and craving far more processed junk than your body would ever actually need. If you stick to whole foods, your biological salt sensors will guide you perfectly. We have covered a ton of deeply fascinating neurobiology in today's explainer, right? From those weak fences hidden inside your brain all the way to the stress hormones triggered by something as simple as a lack of sodium. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this final, slightly provocative thought. Have you personally noticed a difference in your focus or your anxiety levels after adding electrolytes to your routine? Seriously, stop guessing, start working with your biology, and really pay attention to how your body responds when you give it the precise chemical elements it needs to communicate. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on this explainer, and keep exploring the incredible science of you.